Hi, everybody. Welcome. We are so excited to have you here today. I am here with Leah Cheirif. Leah, say hi to everybody.
Hello.
So she is actually known as Rebbetzin Leah Cheirif, and she works as a dating and relationship coach with us at Marriage Minded Mentor. And Leah, when we started working together, we were trying to figure out how to help people in the best way possible. And the way that we started to speak about things, it was like Leah's like, wait, what do you mean? What about this? We we weren't speaking the same language. And Leah's like, I know a system. It's called Chaim Bracha Tov. Rav Noach Weinberg Zatzal from Esha Torah. He gave this whole system over, and we started to talk about it. And I was like, oh my gosh, my brain exploded when she gave this system over to me. And I was like, whoa, okay. So a lot of the things that I was trying to give over to her, some of them I know by intuition, some of the things I've learned through different methods, but I had a hard time. We were having a hard time communicating and speaking the same language to try to explain, what people want and how they find it and who they should look for and why. And then Leah explained this whole system to me, and she was so passionate and excited about it. She did tons and tons of research. We worked with Rabbi Reuven Saret, who was a student of Rav Noach's, and learned directly with him, among several others, which Leah will tell you about. And we pulled all of the information about this system together, and Leah wrote a book, and it's called Point of Connection: How to Actualize Your Potential and Thrive in Relationships. It is on Amazon. Carly can put the link there for you if you'd like to grab a copy. It's also, if you go to marriagemindedmentor.com, you'll see where it says books, you'll find Leah's book that's listed there. And Leah is going to give over today a little bit about how to work with who you are and what you're looking for, and how to get this whole soul type thing down. Like we're bodies and we're souls and we have to live in this world, but we have like an essence to who we are. And how do we pull that all together and explain that to somebody? And how do we say who we are and figure this whole thing out? So without further ado, I want to turn this over to Leah and say thank you so much for presenting this to everybody. And also to let you know, this is not one of those like light and fluffy classes. This is like, if you don't pay attention, you're going to miss it. And even if you do pay attention, you might miss it. It's so much, there's so much here, and it's so in depth. So if you don't fully understand it first time round, Leah does one-on-one coaching with singles, and she will help to assess your personality type and what would be good for you. It's a two-part thing where she does the assessment first and then gives you all the feedback in a second session. And she also takes on clients and works with people through the coaching process. So if you want to sign up for a 15-minute intro session to get to know Leah and to talk about working with her, she would be happy to meet you in that way also. Okay, so Leah, you ready? Take it away.
Yeah. Thank you, Aliza. It's such an honor to be a part of Aliza's business, a Marriage Minded Mentor, mamash, really. So first of all, why a system? 3 reasons. Number one, it's a way that we can understand ourselves better. And I think we all kind of woke up during Corona and was like, whoa, what's going on in the world and who am I? And this is one of the ways that we can understand ourselves. Secondly, you can use this system if you're in the process of finding yourself and trying to decide what you want to do with your life and your career. Knowing your essence and your soul type and your core personality can help you decide where you'll find the most fulfillment in a job and a career as well. And lastly, and probably most importantly, we use the system for dating and marriage, and how to, when you really know yourself, how you can get along not only in marriage but with your family members and friendships, and specifically in marriage and finding the right match. Okay, so my goal for this class is actually not to overwhelm your brain like I did with Aliza, but to first of all explain the main drives in the 2 different manifestations of the animal soul and the godly soul in a basic understanding. So I don't want to overwhelm you. We're going to do it on a basic level, and then I would like to leave a lot of room for questions at the end and how this works for relationships. And what I don't plan to get to is doing anything too in-depth where you'll really fully 100% understand the combinations of the animal soul and the godly soul together. If we get to it, great, but I'm not expecting it. It's something that is really fantastic to do one-on-one with me in another, or maybe in a follow-up webinar. And secondly, we're not going to be able to go through and figure out your personal soul type and combination, you as in you plural. We won't be able to do that in this webinar. This is like basic overall for everyone to hear. And then if you want to go deeper. So here we go. What Rav Noach taught is that everyone, just like we have our physical drives that without them we cannot live without, we also have spiritual drives. We have spiritual DNA that is within each and every one of us, Jew, non-Jew, religious, not religious, everyone. We have this within us, whether we're aware of it or not. And we have all these drives, and they come from our forefathers. They come from Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and they sent this spiritual DNA down to us. And when we learn about these drives that are within us, like I said, all the things above that we can learn about ourselves and thrive in all our relationships. So what are these drives? The first one is, which we're going to call Chaim, is the drive for truth. It's the drive for understanding and purpose and meaning. The second drive is we're going to refer to as bracha. And for purposes of this class, bracha it's to give and receive pleasure. It is loving kindness and chesed. And a person with this drive, that's where they feel the strongest. And the last drive is called Tov. So we had Chaim, bracha, and now Tov. And Tov is to be good and do good. It is all about morality and inner strength. Okay, so those are like basic. By the way, if you don't have paper or like phone to take notes, you might want to do that. It is a good amount of information. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to take these three drives and we're going to break them down into animal soul and godly soul. And I'm going to give you a description and try and give you a picture of like what this looks like, what these drives look like, how you can recognize the person with these drives. Now, what's very, very, very important to know is, like I said, we have all three drives within us. What I do in sessions is I look to find where's your strongest, where are your strengths, where are your weaknesses, what is the strongest drive for you and what that means. And as I'm describing the traits, please keep in mind, I'm like giving a general picture, but it's not going to be that a person with this drive, like let's say we're on Chaim, and I say all these different character traits, and you're like, oh, I have that, or someone I know has that, but not all of them. That's okay. That's fine. We're meant to be balanced, and we're all balanced and very complicated and complex human beings. So bear with me, and please save all your questions for the end, and hopefully we can clarify everything then. You could even probably put them in the chat box now, and then we'll just get them later, I think. Carly will take care of that. Okay. And also, the point of the system, it's about understanding yourself and appreciating others. That's the goal. Okay, so we're going to start with animal soul, and not because it's more important, but because we're more in touch with our animal souls. So that's just where we resonate more. So let's get started. So first one is called Chaim. Like we said, it's the drive for truth. A person who is strong, who is the strongest in the Chaim drive. So they are thinkers. They like to think. They're intellectuals. They're intellectually creative. They are deep thinkers, sometimes to the point that they can overanalyze and overthink, even to the point that it's like, hello, are you here in this world? Like, where are you? They can get lost in their thoughts, sometimes forget things, forget their keys because they're so deep in thought. But really, they have a love of learning, And they like to be experts also on the topic. Like when they learn about something, when they're passionate about it, they want to be the expert. These types Chaims also like to be, are often politically astute. So you take the combination of like the politics and the being intellectual, and the often will go into a profession like lawyer. And what else? So what we're going to do with the animal soul is we're going to talk about, sorry, I forgot to define animal soul. So what is the animal soul? The animal soul, this is very important, is our interactions with the finite world, with the physical world. And what happens with the animal soul is it has two aspects. It has what can bring you closer to God and also what can pull you away. Okay, so it has positive traits and negative traits. So the Chaims are often sensitive. They pick up on nuances. Generally do not like being labeled, and at the same time we have traits like impatience, quick to anger, can be manipulative, can have an ego. They sometimes just want perfection, but to the point of like wanting themselves to be perfect or expecting other people to be perfect. Where they go to, like their default is their head. So we're gonna have head, heart, and feet, and Chaims are mostly in their head. Again, this does not mean that they cannot use their hearts or aren't doing things and only thinking, but primarily in the head. And what does a Chaim do to escape? They go off to fantasy, like whatever gets them to be out of the real world. They'll like a movie, TV, a fantasy book. That's what they'll do to like escape reality. Chaims can not stand hypocrisy or falsehood. It just irritates them to no end. What does a Chaim do? How do they react when someone takes the last cookie from the cookie jar? So they're gonna label that person and say, you're selfish. They're gonna put a label on the person. Now, while they, at the same time, do not like being judged or labeled. Okay, so we're gonna go to the next type. Next type we said is bracha, and which is to give and receive pleasure. So bracha in the animal soul has beautiful, wonderful traits of being warm and loving, and they're easygoing. They just love giving. They're natural givers. They like to do acts of kindness for people. They really enjoy nature and beauty. They really appreciate that. They're people pleasers, which is fantastic. And also at the same time, it can go to the extreme of being a pushover. Sometimes people will just walk all over them. And they also can be lazy, undisciplined, just wanting pleasure and comfort. And that will come first. That will come before doing what's right or any other thing. It's just about being comfortable and having that pleasure. And brachas very much want to be liked. They want people to like them. Brachas are in the heart. They're emotional. They care about other people and making sure that other people are happy and feel loved. What does a bracha do to escape? Something that makes them comfortable and feel pleasure, maybe sleep extra long. And how does a bracha react when someone takes the last cookie of the cookie jar? They're like, yay, they like my cookies, so happy, and like go to the kitchen and start baking more cookies. Okay, so last we have Tov. Tov is to be good and do good, inner strength. And a person on this wavelength, their ultimate pleasure is in doing and in accomplishing. They love to do, they love to get things done. They're driven. They like to correct what is wrong. And they like the sense of responsibility of knowing what is good and right. When they don't know what is the correct thing to do, what is good and right, it's like they don't know what to do with themselves. And so like if you need someone to get something done, you ask a tov to do it. This is their pleasure and responsibility and knowing what's the law, what's the halacha. At the same time, like we said before, positive traits, negative traits, things that can pull them away. Being argumentative and competitive, they can be very hard on themselves and hard on other people. They can be controlling. They will confuse doing what's right with doing what's good. So like they're just like very focused on what is the good thing, but not necessarily like what's good in their eyes. So it's not necessarily the same for everyone. And they often see things as black and white. Brachas before that we mentioned, they're gray. It's like gray, yeah, whatever goes, whatever you want. Tovs are black and white. So that's just like a general picture. Tovs are their feet. So we had head, heart, feet. Generally, tovs are the doers and using their feet and their bodies to get things done. What does a tov do to escape? Just do more. Do something that keeps them busy. Sometimes they'll have trouble relaxing. Like you're in a relationship with someone who's a tov, it's like you might need to be there for them to help them to relax and calm down and make sure they take time for themselves. What does a tov do the cookie jar. If you take the last cookie from the cookie jar, how does a tov react? So they're going to label not you as a person, but they're label your action. Tovs are about action. They're going to say, you shouldn't have done that. That was the wrong thing. So yeah, just gonna take a drink of water. So that's the general picture for the animal souls. So now we're gonna talk about the godly souls. What is our godly soul? So unfortunately, what happens is many of us, hopefully when I was going through and describing, you were able to resonate with some of the traits. And so we're mostly in touch with our animal souls. So what happens is when we talk about the godly soul, we're sometimes like, Leah, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know how anything about my godly soul, or not enough. So we're gonna go through and then just you can get a picture for what each one looks like. So Chaim, God, what is the godly soul? So our godly soul is how our interactions with the infinite, with the spiritual world. How do we feel the most connected to God? Now, these traits can also come out when you're in your day-to-day, but it's more like the godly soul. In Hebrew, we call it the neshama. So, and animal soul is nefesh. So neshama comes from neshima, which is the breath. It's the spark of godliness that God blew into each one of us when we were born. So it's just like something to remember in our day-to-day is like, wait a second, especially when you're going through a hard time. Yeah, like you're going through a challenging time. It's like, wait a second, and just remember, even if you don't know like which type is you, is that I have a neshama, that I have a godly soul, that there is godliness within me, and remember that spark. So that just to like keep that in mind is huge. Okay, so a Chaim godly soul. So these are truth seekers. These people on this wavelength, their main drive is for truth and for understanding and meaning. It's a lot of the same traits that we said for Chaim animal soul. The difference is that the godly soul is whole, complete, and perfect. It does not have the negative traits. So if I was mentioning Chaim animal soul and the love of learning and being an expert, picking up on nuances, learning new ideas. So, and then you're like, but the other like negative traits didn't resonate. So very likely that you're the Chaim godly soul. So it's only the positive traits. Chaim, godly souls, they just like knowing what is not good enough for them. They want to know why things are happening. In order to keep a mitzvah, they want it to make sense to them. Why am I doing this? Just telling me what it is, it's not enough. And they love learning new ideas, and their like passion is in hearing stories of like divine providence and just feeling God's light through the truth, and through understanding his ways. That's everything for Chaim. Okay, so brachas, as we said, the main drive is to give and receive pleasure. So person on this wavelength is all about spirituality, warmth, giving pleasure to other people, connecting people to God, and connecting themselves to God through love, through songs, through nature, just through feeling the love. A person on this wavelength, why do they do a mitzvah? They do it because they care about the person that they're doing it for. They love to do acts of kindness and help people in that sense. And their ultimate is ahavat Hashem. It's feeling the love of God. That's the ultimate for them. And then lastly, we have the Tov godly souls. It's about to be good and do good, doing what's good and right, knowing the halacha, knowing the laws, knowing this, feeling like I have a sense of responsibility to the Jewish people, and how do I fulfill that responsibility? And I just, doing acts of good deeds. But why do they do those good deeds? Because it's the right thing to do. It's not necessarily about the other person I'm doing it for. It's not necessarily about understanding it. It's just because it's what's good and right. I think I got everything. Does anyone have questions at this point? Carly, maybe we could also unmute people if they prefer to ask a question with audio. I'm not that good. I'm sure you have questions.
People cannot meet themselves.
Here's a question that someone sent in through the chat. How do we combine the godly and spiritual soul? Can it be an oxymoron?
Oh, great question. Okay, so one of the second parts to learning this whole thing is doing exactly that, is combining the godly soul and the animal soul. Once you've identified which is which, so I actually break it down in 3 steps. It's a 3-step process of like actualizing your potential. So first is to look at the negative traits in your animal soul and just say like, okay, I recognize these traits and I want to work on those. And it's not like a one-time thing, like a lifetime work, but like trying to get yourself away from the negative traits in your animal soul. And then recognizing the positive traits that you have. And when you use those positive traits, you're able to reach the godly soul. It's one of those things like we can't really reach our godly selves when we're stuck in negative traits. It's like my Rebbetzin Orit Esther writer told us once, like negative emotions are not godly. So we have to, like, if we're in a hard situation or a challenging place and we're just like stuck in whatever negative trait it may be, anger, lust, controlling, whatever it may be, you fill it in for whatever's challenging for you. We have to like get past that, get through that, work on that before we can reach the godliness. And just want to point out that whatever you are in the godly soul, you're going to be different in the animal soul. So anyone that was like, oh, I'm what I call a double, very unlikely. You're going to be a different type in the godly soul than the animal soul. Did that answer the question?
I think it did. So here's the question. Can people be a combination of two, or usually one or another for sort of each area?
Yeah. So you're going to be different. Animal soul and godly soul will be different. And I call the third type, whatever didn't come out strong for you, I call it the weakest link. And it's usually something that you were like, the traits in this type, what you were put in this world to work on. I know that when I was going through like a hard time, and without that difficult time in my life, I would not have written this book and been doing what I'm doing. So I went back, and in hindsight, I'm looking and I'm like, oh, well, this is everything that God wants me to work on. Like, this is my weakest link. And a lot of times our challenges come from like our animal souls and just working on those traits. And a lot of times it's like, okay, where does God want us to like improve ourselves? Where are we really missing in a certain area?
And we also have a question. Everything that you're discussing here is sort of expanded upon in your book, right? It's the same idea.
Yes, it is. It's definitely all here, and there's also like a check yourself section where you can like check the different traits and see where you try and figure yourself out. However, I don't recommend it. I'm saying for reading, it's nice to have like the book by your side, but in terms of like an accurate analysis of figuring out your type, it's definitely better to do with me or with Rabbi Sarit. It's just the most accurate way.
And someone asks, I'm looking for my soulmate, and does he need to be someone who's the same as me, different than me? How so?
Good question. Okay, so when it comes to the animal soul, so basically, here's the general image, is that when our souls are like meant to be complete, yeah? So when we were born, it was broken in half like this. So we have certain traits, and then our soulmate has other traits. And the goal is that the soul is going to be complete with all mix of traits. So general rule of thumb is you're looking for someone who is different than you. In what sense? So in the sense is the person's going to drive you crazy because they're so different. I joke, but it's really true. I mean, I've been working with singles, and it's been one of those things that has come up a lot. It's like sometimes people are looking for someone that's actually quite similar to them. And then we go and I see what type they are, and I said, well, this is the type that's probably what you're looking for, probably what God wants for you. And it's kind of like they're taken a little back, like, really? But that's how the soul gets its completion. So for example, if you're like the Tov and you're controlling or hard on yourself, or you're the doer, let's say, so like bracha could be a good balance because that person is more easygoing and relaxed, and it's a beautiful balance, and yet at the same time it's hard work. Generally, like one of the points I make in the book is brachas, because of their easygoing nature, can marry any type. So either the Chaim or the Tov. This is talking about the animal soul. You do want to find, you very likely will make somewhere a point of connection, meaning that one of your types will be the same. So it could be in your godly soul that you'll have the same type, because like you want to connect somewhere. I mean, you'll have things that connect, your values and your aspirations for life and your goals. But in terms of personality, like there'll be connections somewhere, but I think that Answers it. Yeah, like also if you're like have Chaim somewhere in there and you're intellectual, like you're probably looking for someone who's also intellectual so you can connect on that level. But not, again, not necessarily. Things, you know, when you're dating, you're looking for someone who's like really on the same page as you. You look in the past, you know, where you went to college, what you learned, life experiences, and then you're in this moment of like, okay, looking at the future. And then things also can change in the future. Like, it's not always going to be that you're going to be talking about the politics or the whatever you learned in college and the intellectual things. Like, life changes, and hopefully kids and diapers and all that. And like, so definitely looking for differences. And it's important to know like what, even though you say a certain trait might drive you crazy, so you like, you're not going to date that type or you don't want to marry that type, it could be that you're going to end up with that type of person anyway. And that's one of the beautiful things of marriage, is just like working out those differences.
And someone asks, in terms of religion, are they also usually, a soulmate is looking for someone in the same level of observance? Do you find that that's something that's important?
For the godly soul type? Say it again.
So they just say, in terms of religion, oh, it's more of a comment, it looks like. They're saying that you want someone who matches also in terms of observance also.
Yeah, absolutely. That should definitely be on the same page. Yeah.
And then someone asks, when someone's indecisive, does that mean they're not aligning with their soul? So I guess if you're not sure how you feel about someone, if they are your soulmate or not, do you think that that's sort of the soul type not aligning?
Say it again. I just want to answer properly.
When someone's indecisive, does that mean they're not aligning with their soul?
Not necessarily. There could be a lot of reasons that we're indecisive in dating. Not necessarily.
And can someone have the 3 traits in him or her? How do you know what they are? So I guess that's a question of, how do you know sort of yourself? How yourself, do you know what type you are? What the different 3 traits, how they play? Can you talk about like how you sort of introspect and discover which soul types you are?
Yeah, sure. So everyone has all 3 types within them. Usually, most people are able to pick out one that they're like, yeah, that I definitely resonate more with a certain type. It depends on your like balance. Some people are super balanced and they're just like a beautiful flow of all of them. How can you figure out which one you are? There's one way is to, we try clarifying as much as we can right now in the webinar. Also take a look at the book. And I mean, the easiest way is to do the questionnaire with me in a session. And I'm able, like I have, the way that I do it is asking a bunch of questions and statements. And then whatever like comes out the strongest number, so that's gonna be the animal soul. And then whatever comes out the runner-up, second most, is the godly soul. And it works. I'm saying like it's accurate. I've been doing it with all my clients, and then after we do the second session with the analysis, and they're like, yeah, that's me. Like I do the description of the combination and what it sounds like, and it works. So it gives a pretty clear picture.
Awesome. And then, so we have some clarification on the sort of question comment I was asking before. Is there no way to know if you meet your soulmate? Is there sort of a way that you would really know, or something will click and violins will play in the background?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Short answer, no. Longer answer, once you know what you're looking for, and you're like, yeah, I know this is what my soul needs to be complete. And you're getting to know the person's personality, and you'll pick up on certain traits. So let's say, for example, use myself as an example. I knew that I was dating, I needed a bracha. So when I was dating my husband, I picked up on, as we were getting to know each other, I saw his bracha traits. So hopefully in dating, you're focusing on the person's virtues. And also that's meant to continue in marriage, even though it can get more difficult. Rav Noach Weinberg defines love as focusing on the virtues in another person. So you're hopefully picking up on the good things. Now what you can do is say, oh yeah, like I said, he has the bracha, he has the warmth and the nurturing and the caring and the easygoing. I didn't mention before, spontaneous, fun-loving, adventurous, that's also bracha. And just like, once you pick up on that, say, okay, so I see they have the bracha. So either that they're the godly soul and they have the bracha there, or they also have the other traits in the bracha. There's a fantastic chart in the back of the book as well that like gives a clear picture. If it's like hard to visualize all this, it shows all of these traits and where they go, chaim, bracha, tov, positive traits, negative. So you can just kind of like be aware, like, okay, yeah, they have all those. So they might also have the other stuff as well. And no one's perfect. So like one of the things of like self-awareness and knowing ourselves is I have my strengths, I have my weaknesses, and my spouse too will also have their strengths and weaknesses. I want to say one more thing on that. Can you read the question again?
Sure. I think they were just asking about meeting your soulmate, if there's a way that you know that
right.
is your soulmate.
So yeah, so I was over like doing a session with a client yesterday, just an example, and she was looking back at a date that did not work out, and was saying, like, describing different situations, saying, and things that you were saying were kind of manipulative. And I was like, okay, that's like a sign for Chaim. And because she's a Tov and I don't usually recommend that match to go together, so I gave her like the verification of like, it's a good thing you didn't keep going. There were other things as well, but like one of those was, I was like, yeah, that's generally not such a good idea, and it's good you didn't keep going.
And so we have another question. When you're mentioning the type you're looking for, like you were saying your client was a Tov, is that referring to their animal soul?
Yeah, in that case, yes. Yeah.
Awesome. Feel free to keep sending questions. I was wondering if there is sort of one soul type that you see more commonly with singles versus not. Like, I don't know if people who are single tend to be more this type or...
For animal soul, I'm guessing. So many of the clients that go specifically to Eliza are Chaims. I can tell you that. That's very common. And other than that, I would say Bracha's the least, because they're like more the relationship type and easiest to thrive in relationships. Not that they don't come for coaching, but they're them the least. Yeah.
And then someone expanded on this by asking, is one type more common with men and another type more common with women?
No. I've gotten that though. I know sometimes I'm describing the bracha and they're like, oh, that's women. And then I get to the tov, oh, the man. Tovs are like tough and disciplined. It's not, no.
And then are there other examples you've noticed the understanding of personality traits helping in? So this system, other than just working with singles to find soulmates, does this apply to work and family relationships?
Yes, absolutely.
Go ahead.
We can do the short yes. For sure. I mean, I've definitely seen trends of, like, I'll give you an example of someone who has Tov, godly soul, and Chaim, animal soul. So they have like the desire for doing what's good and right and the responsibility, and then combine that with the high intellectual level and being an expert and wanting, high level of learning. So often go to profession, for example, lawyer, doctor, psychologist. Someone with a combination of bracha and chaim, they're the type that you don't want to, generally do not thrive in a 9-to-5 job. They need their space to have their own ideas and the flexibility, comfort in a way to just make their own hours. So there's definitely patterns and like finding what's right for you in a career, and also with family members. One thing is like, genetics definitely do play a part in this. You can get a lot of your animal soul traits from your parents. So that could be a reason either why you either get along with them or clash with them. Like a lot of these traits, definitely you can like connect to your parents.
Great. So someone asks, can you repeat which animal and godly souls match together the best?
Okay. I'll do in like a general rule of thumb. So Chaim's, for the godly soul, it's not so, it can really go any way. I said before, you're often looking for someone that has what you're missing. So let's just say like Chaim Bracha, okay? So they could go with Chaim Tov. I'm just trying to like match it up in different, and it's they're not going to be the same as you. Like, so if you're a Chaim Bracha, they're not also going to be a Chaim Bracha. It could be that they're a Bracha Chaim, which is a flip. That happens a lot. That you have a lot of the similar traits, and then just like both not as strong in the last area. I do like, when it comes to Chaims and Tovs and Animal Soul, it's not that it doesn't happen ever, but I do tell people to proceed with caution, especially if the Chaim is a guy and he's spacey. So spacey, dreamy type. That can be problematic if the Tov woman is like, let's go, let's do what we got to do, and like not respecting him for his dreamy ways. Yeah, I hope that answered. It's easier to go through like once we know exactly what you are, and then like name the combinations that way.
Right. You could do a whole giant chart of, okay, well, if you're Chaim Tov, and these are all the possible combinations of people.
It's also, the thing is, it's not so black and white.
Right.
It's not so black and white. There's going to be beautiful aspects of the relationship no matter what, and there's going to be challenges no matter what. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's just the way marriage is. Mm-hmm.
So this relates to what you said, and it also kind of goes against what you said. Someone asked, you mentioned Chaim and Tov not being a good match. Are there any other specific pairings that you don't usually recommend?
No, I don't think so.
Like you said, it's not so black and white.
It's not so black and white, yeah. And it also depends on like where there's other factors other than just our soul type, like upbringing and childhood trauma, and like how balanced the person is or not, like how much people are working on themselves, like sometimes it's just like butting heads about whatever it may be, and then sometimes giving up and ending divorce, or just like saying, no, we're going to work through this no matter what. So I feel like that also has a part to play, and just like how much you're willing to work on it. And also, here's something I usually have to remind myself. When we are reaching our godly souls and we're in this positive place, and we're in the godly place, that's when our relationships and our marriages thrive. So one of the things that I recommend is, when it comes to yourself, like you're looking, where can I improve? What can I do to make things better, and always keep in mind, like, what are my strengths? And when it comes to your spouse, is only focusing on their positive. This is not like, it doesn't happen all the time. I'm saying this is the ideal, is not focusing on their negative traits. And when something's going wrong, is how can I, like the spouse, or the husband, the wife, what can I do to make it better? And like coming to this mutual, if both spouses get to that point where they can do that, then it's a godly place where they're going to get to the peace, and like everyone's seeing like, what can I do to make this better?
So when you're working with your singles, are there certain problems or maybe disagreements that you see come up more with, like, oh, she's a Tov and that's why she's having this problem? Are there, do you see those trends, or is it not dependent on that?
Yeah, for sure. Definitely see trends.
What kinds of trends do you see?
Yeah, so it could be, well, one is if a person is, looking for a type that's not necessarily appropriate for them, so then they're going to keep meeting the resistance. Or if a person is just like maybe too black and white, too hard on themselves, too hard on other people, and they're just like expecting something that's not going to come their way. Another trend is looking for someone that's perfect. Doesn't exist. So
we all
not out there, and it's or along the lines of perfect, like if a person is struggling with like ego and desiring honor, so they're gonna, it's basically the same as it's perfect. Like, well, I'm expecting this and I'm going to get everything that I'm looking for. And sometimes it comes and sometimes it doesn't come, but it might just take longer when you have like high expectations.
Great. So I have this question and I just asked for some clarification. They ask, is it possible for one to have Chaim and Tov, animal soul, and Bracha, godly? Can it be a problem? So I'm not sure if they mean within a couple to have one person Chaim, another Tov, and both Bracha.
Yeah, so say it again.
Is it possible for one to have Chaim and Tov, animal soul, and Bracha, godly? Can that be a problem?
Oh. Can it be a problem? No, I mean, the bracha is definitely great to like balance things out. And again, it also depends on like the balance within a person. If it could work, I don't want to say it can't work. It really it's very individualized. Like, if they're like extreme personalities, yeah, let's say it's like an extreme Chaim and he's like super with, I say he because it's just, that's where I tend to go. It's like we said before, it's not like gender related, but let's say the guy is like with a super ego and expecting it perfect and demanding honor and respect. We do have to respect our husbands, but like I'm saying, to like a higher extreme level, and the woman is just like, let's say, super controlling. So like, I mean, that's not good. It's not going to be good if she's controlling and he's a bracha, but like, it's just like who are you to tell me? Like his ego will come in. So I'm not, but if it's like, listen, there's Chaims out there that are like, yeah, they have like a little bit here, a little bit there, but like generally like a lot of positive, and like they're just like, they love learning and they love learning new ideas, and like not like, I just said 6 types, and like we're so complex. So it could be that like he's more about the learning and doesn't have so many, like doesn't have the Yetzer Hara, the negative inclination so much, it's not so strong. So it could. I hope I know it sounds vague, but like I don't want to say black and white. No, it's very situational and depends on the person. So I don't want to say it can't work. I just usually say like proceed with caution, or I would recommend this. I could tell you one specific couple that is actually in the book, like in the couples section at the back, that I interviewed. And this was an example where he was a Chaim and she's a Tov, an animal soul. And they basically told me that like if it wasn't for very, very hard work and also like keeping the Torah, that it probably wouldn't have worked out. They worked very hard on it.
And here's a really good question. Aren't people a mixture of multiple traits, and one is just stronger? For example, someone's 80% bracha, 20% tov, and would you call that person a bracha?
Yes, so we're definitely a mix, definitely. Like I said, it's very individualized. Usually I figure it out through the personality analysis, like however the numbers come out. So a person, well, 80% tov and 20% bracha, what's the other? If the other percent is like 50%, so then there we found our godly soul. Yeah, like whatever's the second.
And what to do if one is hard on themselves and others? What can they do to correct that? Should they focus more on their godly soul?
Yeah, that's a great solution. Definitely.
The answer the
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. It's just one of those, any of the negative traits. It's like, how do I get out of this? How do I get through it? It's hard, it takes hard work.
Great. So we have a couple more minutes if anyone has a last few questions that they want to send in, either in the chat or you can message it to me directly, and I can read it out for you. We got one just now. Someone says, feeling of guilt, where would that belong? So I guess, I don't know, you can interpret that.
Yeah, no, that's tov, actually, generally. I mean, unless it's coming from like I said before, childhood trauma, something like that. But generally, yes, I did forget to mention tovs often are guilty, nervous, anxious. Like someone I was working with, and like they would say, this is what worried me about the guy, and would say like, or this made me nervous, that thing. And they were what I call yellow lights. Like none of them were red lights, deal breakers, but things that were worrisome. And yeah, it's usually in the tov animal soul.
So I don't know if you want to talk about maybe for the singles who are listening, if you have like sort of a call to action or something that they can do if they're looking to maybe, as Eliza says, get over the hurdles and under the chuppah, which is Eliza's book. If you sort of have one piece of advice that you would share with everyone, what it would be.
One piece of advice.
Or more than one.
So I would say one is just know yourself. Like if you're in dating and you're just like, well, I'm not like 100% sure and confident who I am, but not just like on a core level, like what's my essence? What are what's super important to me? Knowing who I am and like what really matters, just really knowing yourself. When you know yourself, everything else like fizzles in and the right person will come, even if you can't exactly identify them in this system. Knowing who you are and what you want, what's important to you. And also tools. I feel very strongly that life is about tools. So like, dating, like you need to know how to date. It's not just like, it doesn't come naturally all the time. Sometimes you need to reach out and get help. So you get Eliza's book, or you get a coach or whatever, talk to someone that you know that's like successful in marriage. Same thing with anything in life. Like I always say to myself, I couldn't parent my children if I didn't have my parenting class. Like I wouldn't know what to do. Or like books, there's so many amazing books out there. And just getting the tools to like the knowledge to succeed. 5 love languages, that's a good one. That helped me with like my family.
That's a good segue for me to say I'm throwing the link in the chat again if you want to schedule your free 15-minute interview with Leah. So I put that right in there. And I guess we could wrap up with, here's this last question that I just got. Where would you put defensiveness? Where does defensiveness come under? And how do you know if that's part of someone's sort of essence and soul versus maybe just something that's a reactionary thing?
That's a great question. So I would say it could come from the Tov, that they're just like seeing things their way, the black and white, being right or wrong. It could also definitely come from the Chaim of like, what do you mean? Like, this is the way I see it. And like, not, and Chaims are very opinionated. So it could be like, you're saying something and then they're saying something defensive because they just believe differently. So one or the other, those two. Good question.
Great. So I think that from our end wraps up all the questions I have. I don't know if you have any sort of closing final thing you want to say.
Thank you everyone for coming. I know it's a lot of information, and I hope it gave you like a basic picture, and definitely be in touch if you want to learn more and like really understand it deeper in a personal way. So love to help you through that.
Yes, thank you so much for doing our little webinar today. And anybody who's attending, if you want to have sort of next steps for, I learned so much, what can I do next? You can go to marriagemindedmentor.com. And the link I just put, that's to Leah's page specifically. You can also go on there, and if you want to talk to Aliza, if you want to learn more about events that are coming up, or if you want to see the link to Leah's book or Aliza's book, you can find that there also. So yeah, thank you again, everyone. And thank you so much.
Yeah, and this was recorded. So like, if you want to tell a friend, the recording will be available.
Yep, this was recorded. To everyone who signed up, the link will be emailed out to you once the video is uploaded. It'll be uploaded to a YouTube link that we send out. And then it'll also be available on the website as well. So if you have friends who you want to send this to, you can do that. Great. Thanks so much, everybody.
Yay.
Thank you.